Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. Now, I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last wee while, quite a few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are pretty damn solid all round, although my go-to beers from these guys tend to be their lagers because they're pretty authentic in comparison to what you want from Germany or the Czech Republic, and they are very accessible. But the beers I've had in the other style categories from them have always been pretty damn good as well. And these guys are also one of the bigger by volume craft breweries here in Hong Kong as well. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases through Circle K, which we have every month, of course. It's a style that I know these guys can do very, very well, and it is on the stronger side of things as well within this style category too. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head over to Hong Kong Island. We're going to go to Wong Chuk on the southern part of the island, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Young Master Brewery. So this particular beer is called Gigi. It comes in at 10% ABV, and this one is a triple IPA. It tells us on the can that this one is 25 IBUs, so that makes me think this one is most likely to be a New England Hazy kind of a triple IPA. And if memory serves me correctly, I think we've had West Coast triple IPAs from this brewery, but never New England Hazies. So I'm quite curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. The other thing that makes me very curious about this particular beer is the fact that a lot of people on the Hong Kong Craft Beer Enthusiast WhatsApp group were going a bit crazy when this thing finally dropped in the Circle Ks. So yeah, usually when people get quite excited about it, it tends to be pretty damn good. So let's just crack on with this one and see what it's going to have in store for us. The GG from Young Master Brewery in Wong Chuk over on Hong Kong Island, 10% triple IPA. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Young Master Brewery before, and we will definitely add more to that list at some point in the near future because these guys are pretty damn prolific. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I review beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist along with a number of other things. That's being edited very regularly since I'm based out here now, but do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very, very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Young Master Brewery once again then. So, Young Master Brewery was founded back in 2013 by Rohit Dugar, who is originally from New Delhi in India. But he moved to Hong Kong in 2011 from New York, and he was working for Goldman Sachs, and he had quite an extensive career in the finance industry. But he decided one day, having been exposed to craft beer over in America, that he wanted to quit and found his own microbrewery. So in the early days, he was joined at the brewery by German brewer Ulrich Altbauer, who had an extensive experience of brewing across Asia, but also in mainland China. And he was their head brewer until he sadly died in 2016. But the current brew team they have is Edwin and Brian, both of whom have worked for the brewery for a good number of years, and they are very talented at what they do. They worked under Ulrich for a good few years from what I understand. But the first brewery they had was in Ap Lay Chau, which is a little island just off the south coast of Hong Kong Island, and there their facility had a 10 hectolitre brew house, and this was their main production up until mid-2016. But they opened up a new brewery in Wong Chuk with a 40 hectolitre brew house from GEA in Germany, and they also had a larger barrel aging area there, and they got a fodder as well, which was the first for any brewery in Asia. So Young Master Brewery have always been pretty pioneering when it comes to wild ales and things like this as well. But they've got several tap rooms and restaurants these days. This includes TAP, the ale project in Mongkok. There also used to be one up in Chun Wan. They've got Second Draft at Victoria Park, close to Causeway Bay. That's probably my favourite of their venues, actually. There's Pub 1842 in Central, which I still need to go and visit, and they've also got the Guild in Singapore. And up until recently, they also had Alvy's, which was their pizza restaurant over in Kennington. I loved that place. I was quite sad when it shut down. But they previously, I think they had another place as well, if memory serves me correctly, or at least they were involved in something else. But yeah, the shutting down of Alvy's and Chun Wan has been fairly recent from what I understand. I think Chun Wan was a little bit before 2023, if I'm not mistaken, or during the COVID pandemic. But anyway, today, these guys are the largest craft brewery by volume in Hong Kong, and they're also the most decorated Hong Kong craft brewery as well. As of July 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 280 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they employ in the region of 20 different people. But one of the beers that's really accessible from these guys is their unfiltered Pilsner. For me, it's really, really good. You can find that in pretty much any Circle K across Hong Kong, and they do these little small releases, small batch releases through Circle K every month, which are always pretty interesting. So these are definitely worth checking out if you get the chance. So for me, mainly it's the lagers that I drink, but I like trying their more experimental stuff as well. So yeah, we'll just need to keep an eye on these guys and see what they produce over the next wee while. But that is everything I can really tell you about Young Master Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at this beer itself. So I'll just let you have a wee look at the can art on this one before we open up. There you can see over here, it's a little bit more kind of zebra coloured, but yeah, it kind of gets a little bit more colourful over this side of things. You can see the hops that they're using in this one are from Yakima Chief, and what's the other company in there? Can't quite see that. Brewed with Dynaboost Yakima Chief, so I guess that's one of their kind of treatment methods for their hops. But it tells you a wee bit about the beer on the side here, and the kind of, they call it the dancing pants because it's, you know, American English in here. So yeah, this is one of the symbols of Young Master Brewery, as well as this one up here on the top of the can, which I think it's, yeah, there you go, it's focused now. So yeah, these are the Chinese characters, the traditional Chinese characters I should say, for a Young Master, and it tells you a wee bit about the kind of flavours and things you can expect from the beer too. Then you've got this little blurby bit. So the little blurb, if I put it up the right way, it says here, with more firepower than ever, this year's GG Triple IPA features Yakima Chief hops, Dynaboost, an oil-enriched Whirlpool edition that amplifies hop aromatics through a concentration of wort-soluble compounds. Packed to the brim with Simcoe and HBC 586, this gentle giant erupts citrus and tropical fruitiness while being frighteningly drinkable, despite its gargantuan 10% ABV. So yeah, it does sound a little bit like a monster, this one. So yeah, Simcoe, of course, is a hop that we know pretty well. 12% alpha acid. It gives you this lovely passion fruity character, which is a bit more oily in a West Coast IPA, but very soft and juicy in a New England IPA, which I suspect this beer is going to be. But the other hop that's in this one, HBC 586, that's of course a name that derives from the fact that this hop is still experimental. It's not been officially named yet, but Hop Brewing Company number 586. This is an American hop. It gives you 12% alpha acid and about 8% beta acid, and it's known to give a mix of tropical fruits such as mango, guava and lychee. So yeah, should be quite an interesting one, this. But that is all the info I can really tell you about the beer. Let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. The GG Triple IPA, 10% ABV from Young Master over in Wong, Chuk on Hong Kong Island. Really curious about this one. Yeah. Incidentally, the cost of this beer, I think, was 23 Hong Kong dollars, which translates to £2.30 sterling. About, what's that going to be? Maybe like €2.75, $3 American, if I'm remembering my exchange rates properly. I really should get more familiar with the Australian dollar as well, considering the part of the world that I'm in. But anyway, yeah, that gives you a rough idea of the price. So, anyway, That's us got the beer out and into the can, and you can see, or out and into the glass, out of the can into the glass. Brain is not working, guys, but there you can see this beer is poured with a lovely finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. I wouldn't say that one is perfect white, definitely slightly more kind of creamy coloured, this one, but you can see some medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid there, and it gets a little bit foamier the further up that you go. And the colour of this one, I have to say, is pretty damn impressive. It's a lovely kind of rich, like mixed tropical fruit juice colour, this one. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of hops, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker coloured beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But you don't often have to care about that when it comes to different kinds of IPAs. But the level of haze on this one is pretty damn impressive. I mean, this thing is ridiculously soupy and gloopy. This is the soupiest and gloopiest IPA I've ever seen from Young Master, I have to say. But remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. That can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer, but safe to say this one is haze for days, gloopy as fuck, however you want to put it. It looks pretty damn impressive. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this beer, just one or two bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass and a few going up toward the bottom of that head there. But overall, it looks pretty nice, this one, and pretty much as you would expect from a New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. And remember, the kind of definition of this particular style category is that they contain wheat and oats in the malt base rather than just barley malt, which tends to be the case with the West Coast IPAs. And these also have slightly different things with the hops as well, which we'll come to a little bit later on in the review. But yeah, that's everything about the appearance. Let's go on and have a little look at the aroma of this one. I have to say, I am very, very curious about this. Oh, that smells good. We'll need to see if we can get this on tap somewhere and see what it's like. But yeah, I have to say, this smells pretty damn good, actually. Yeah, I mean, I always enjoy the collaborative West Coast IPAs that these guys do, but this smells like it's just on another level. And it kind of goes to show you that these guys are a very, very capable brewery, actually. But that smells awesome. It gives you everything you'd want from a New England hazy. Lovely, big, kind of smooth, malty backbone in this one. Good bit of bright green hoppy character, and then you've got the lovely juicy fruity characters. So yeah, let's just break the aroma of this one down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So for me, I think there are 6 things to think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of a New England IPA. You've got the more yeasty, kind of farmhousey character to it, and you've got the rye, lean and grainy sort of things. And those are a bit more common in American brewed New England IPAs, but you've got wheaty bitiness, barley malt bread, oaty creaminess, and also the sweeter side of things. For me, I get a lot of barley malt out of this one, I get a lot of oat, and I do get a slight degree of sweetness, actually. Don't get too much in the way of wheaty character out of this one and wheaty bitiness, but of course the other thing we have to think about is that wheat and oats can be very different depending on what part of the world they're from. These guys like to use German malts, and when it comes to European malts, the wheat tends to be a little bit more bitey, but the oats are a bit more creamy. If you go to America, the wheat is a little bit kind of smoother, I would say, and the oats are a little bit more kind of porridgey in their nature. And of course you'll get the same if you go down to Australia or something like that as well. But yeah, for me, this beer, the malty side of things is quite barley malt leaning, quite oaty, and there is a fair bit of yeasty character to this one too. But let's break down this aroma and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth then. So the backbone of the beer for me, you've got this lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust to this one, like a kind of hedgehog roll or something like that. There's definitely a little bit of woodiness in there and a wee bit of cracker, but above that there's a lot of breadiness in this beer. So for me, good little bit of wholemeal brown bready character in there, but not too much. Fluffy, fresh, slightly sweet white bread as well. The wheat comes out a little bit more as well the more that you smell of this beer, but I don't think the wheat is overly prominent in the aroma of this one. It's a little bit bitey at the back of the nose, quite smooth from that further forward, but yeah, on top of that, there's a nice little bit of oatiness in this beer. So when it comes to the oatiness in New England IPAs, it's worth talking about because it can usually be a very rough indicator of how fresh your New England IPA is. Essentially, the creamier the oat smell and taste, the fresher your beer is, the drier they are, the older the New England IPA is. Quite a crude measure, but I found that hypothesis or postulation, whatever you want to call it, that tends to stand when it comes to this particular beer style. So I'm getting quite a bit of creaminess out of this one, but there is just a little touch of dryness to it as well, which is quite interesting. But yeah, above the oatiness, you get some really nice kind of sweetness in this beer. There's a little bit of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of sweetness. And when this beer is like 10% ABV, a triple New England IPA, that's kind of to be expected. I would say there's a little bit of like biscuit in this one as well, a little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit. But overall, it smells really, really nice, this one. So it gets a big thumbs up for me. Really, really nice, interesting smelling beer, this. Of course, there's a little bit of woodiness in there, and there's I think the woodiness actually becomes a bit more prominent in this beer the further that you go into it. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the malty side of the beer. The yeasty side of the beer is giving you a bit more like white bread and woody and crackery character in the back of the nose too, which is interesting. But yeah, on to the hoppy side of things then. So as I've explained on the channel many times before, when it comes to IPAs, you have three types of hoppings to think about. So you have your early edition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort ball. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deeper, danker aroma. Late edition hopping, which takes place in the last half hour of the wort ball. That gives you a wee bit of bitterness, mainly flavour aroma, and it's going to give you a brighter green component overall. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that's going to give you pretty much all flavour and aroma, and again a very bright green component as well. But yeah, for me, New England IPAs tend to, I think generally speaking, New England IPAs use mostly late edition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs will use all three. So for me, West Coast IPAs have that deeper, danker character, and that dominates over late edition and dry hopping, I would say, in the aroma. But with this one, you've got a lovely bright green component to this beer. So there's a little touch of earthiness to it, but not very much. A little bit of herbal character as well, but again, that's quite minimal. For me, the green component in this beer really leans toward like a nice kind of wet floral aromaticity. There's a wee bit of zesty grassiness in there, but generally speaking, I would say the green component in this beer is very, generally the green component is quite wet, but still very, very fresh in this one. A lot of wet, freshly cut, zesty, grassy character, I would say too. But yeah, on the fruity side of things with this one, this is quite interesting. Of course, you're getting that, we've got Simcoe in this beer, so the big juicy passion fruit from the Simcoe is quite evident in this one. But I think the HBC, what number was it? It was 562, was it? 586, sorry, HBC 586 in this one. I get a lot of guava in this beer. You can smell that big, ripe, green guava, and for me, guava is very much like a very ripe green mango almost. So I'm getting a lot of the guava out of this beer. I can see why some people would say lychee with it as well, because it's got that spicy yet kind of juicy sort of lychee character in there as well. But yeah, all in all, yeah, lychee, definitely I wonder if there's a little touch of like a peachy note to this as well. There's a little bit of peach, a lot of passion fruit, and definitely guava, and then yeah, that kind of lychee note to it as well. But it smells kind of, the underlying aroma of this beer is kind of woody. You get quite a lot of woodiness out of this one. So I'm not really sure what you're kind of supposed to get from the green component of this particular beer either, but I think it's pretty nice. Yeah, I think that's everything we really need to say about the aroma of this beer. So as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we try this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the GG, a 10% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA from the wonderful Young Master Brewery in Wong, Chuk here in Hong Kong. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. that is pretty damn good, I have to say. As they said, for a 10% New England triple, that thing is dangerously easy to drink. It covers its alcohol remarkably well. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, lovely, very soft, wet, juicy New England IPA. Yeah, this is interesting. I mean, in comparison with the aroma, I'd say this one's a little bit more barley malt leaning and not quite as thick. I thought this was going to be a really big, thick, you know, kind of creamy, smooth New England IPA, but it's a bit more, I think, soft. And juicy is a more accurate way to describe this one rather than being really thick and creamy. But yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really interesting. Not quite what I expected, but still a very good beer. You know, that's what I've kind of come to expect of Young Master over the years of trying their beers. But yeah, it gives you everything you want. Lovely big bit of juiciness in there, nice green component, and there's a good wee bit of kind of malty character coming out of this one too. So yeah, I like that about this one. Where to start then? Middle third of the palate, as we always do. So yeah, the middle third of your palate in this beer. The backbone of this one, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. As you move further forward from that, you've got a little bit of a kind of woody character coming out of the beer. So yeah, a little bit of woodiness in there, and on top of that fresh white bready bread crust, I'd say there's a little bit of a kind of crackery note to it as well. So yeah, the crackery note that you get out of this beer, I think, is quite minimal actually. So yeah, you've got the bread crust, the crackery note, and I think the woodiness and a bit of the graininess from that bread crust kind of lingers into the aftertaste. But yeah, on top of that, the breadiness that you get out of this beer is actually very light. So you can feel there's a really kind of light, airy layer of a wholemeal brown bready character to this one. Then above that, you get a kind of soft and fluffy, airy white bready note out of the beer. So yeah, fluffy kind of brown bready character, fluffy white bready character in there above that, and then yeah, you start to get a little bit of the kind of wheaty character to the beer as well. So the wheat that's in this one is actually quite smooth, although in fairness, at the back of that front third of your palate, at the back of that middle third of your palate, sorry, you do get a little touch of wheaty bitiness out of this one, but you can feel that it kind of mellows out as you go further forward. As I've always said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more bitter flavours come out further towards the back. But above the wheaty layer, you start to get the oatiness out of this beer. So the oatiness, as you go down that middle line of your palate, you can feel it's a little bit denser and a little bit more creamy, and as you move toward the edges of that middle third of your palate, you can feel that the oats just show you that little bit of dryness in there. But yeah, definitely on top of that oaty layer, you can feel in the middle third of your palate, you've got a wee bit of a kind of Werther's Original butter candy butterscotchy sort of thing. So yeah, a little bit of Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch, a little bit of biscuit in there as well. And yeah, I think that's maybe everything that's going on in that middle third of your palate. As I've said, the thing that's surprising about this beer when it's 10% is that the malt base is as light as it is. Yeah, I think the further into the aftertaste that you go with this beer, you can feel the breadiness sort of builds up a little bit, but like I say, it feels, for a 10%er, it really is one of these very light, airy and quite juicy New Englands rather than being really thick and very, very creamy. So just it takes a completely different approach, this one. It's almost like you've put that German drinkability element into a New England IPA, which, you know, Young Master for me are very much a German style brewery in a lot of the things that they do, but they're not afraid to try the American styles, of course, and they do those very well too. But yeah, I think we've said everything we need to about the middle third of the palate. Let's move to the back third of your palate then. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you got a little bit of bready build up in there, kind of wholemeal brown bread in the base. The white bready character sits above that, and you've got a wee touch of the wheaty bitiness on top of that, but the base of that back third of your palate, you can feel the white bready bread crusty character is there, feels a little bit drier. You've got a wee bit of the crackery layer above that, then the wholemeal brown bready character comes above that, a little bit lighter, a little bit more airy, and then the white bready character sits above all of that, of course, as well, which is again a little bit lighter, more airy, but those two layers are a wee bit drier, and then the wheaty bitiness just creeps over the top of that. Then you've got the yeasty character of the beer sitting on the top of that back third of the palate there too. So let's look at that yeasty side of things. Yeah, so the yeasty side of this beer, for me, I would say it's got a little bit of like a kind of farmhousey, and yeah, it's got a little bit of a more kind of farmhousey, rusticy sort of white bready character in the middle. Then around the edge, it's got more of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character to it, and then yeah, you've got a more kind of bread crusty edge to it as well. So yeah, that yeasty character that sits there on the back of the palate, that takes a wee bit more time to kind of rear its head, if you like. But the way all of that goes together, the way the malty and yeasty side of this beer goes together is quite nice. But I think the yeasty character and the dryness that you get out of this beer into the aftertaste is quite interesting. But yeah, for a 10% triple, this one is a really interesting mix. It really is a very, very interesting mix of things going on, actually. So yeah, interesting stuff. But definitely, yeah, back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. But yeah, I think we can move on to the green component and the hoppy side of this beer then. So yeah, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of, there's a little touch of earthiness in there, and as you move further forward, a little bit herbal, but yeah, as you push further forward along to the front corners of your palate, you can feel the beer just gets gradually more and more floral. As we said earlier, New England IPAs rely on late addition and dry hopping. But round the front curve of the palate, you've got a little bit of a lighter, more grassy sort of thing coming out of this one. And yeah, it's kind of zesty in a sense, but yeah, the green component in this beer, the floral character and the grassy side of things really is quite zesty, and I do like how that pieces together, actually. Yeah, interesting stuff on that sense. But let's have a wee look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity, juicy side of the beer. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. You get a little bit of the bready build up in there again, the brown bread in the base, then the white bread on top, and a wee bit of the wheaty bitey character there. But the base of that front third of your palate, the white bready bread crust is in there, the kind of Jacob's cream cracker sort of characters above that, then yeah, the brown bread, the white bread, and a wee bit of the wheat. And the wheat is quite smooth at the front third of your palate, but I'm feeling I'm getting just a little bit of that bitiness out of it too. But then above that, you can feel that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So the way that all of that goes together, I think, is nice too. I keep repeating that in this video just because I'm a bit tired. But yeah, fruity side of this one, I think, is what we need to focus on now. So let's do that. Yeah. Yeah, I will say, I think the kind of impact flavour on that oily bubble, the impact flavour that you get is from that HBC 586. Because when you take this beer in, there's a lot of guava to it, and into the aftertaste you can feel that little bit of lychee as well, which is interesting. So yeah, when you first take that in, you'll feel the guava just coming in there. And if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, I think that ripe green guava type quality kind of sits there. Then as you move further forward from that, you get some really nice juicy mangoes, but then you get the lovely soft passion fruit that you expect of the Citra. And as you move into the front half of that front third of your tongue and that oily bubble, you start to get the kind of almost slightly spicy but juicy lychee character out of the beer. So yeah, the 586 for me is, yeah, it's absolutely lychee, and that, yeah, the guava character as well. I'm trying to think, does it have a little bit of a more peachy note as well? I think there might be a little bit of peachy character in there into the aftertaste too. But yeah, for the fruity side of this beer, you start at the back, kind of bright sharp green guava, then yeah, big juicy ripe mangoes. As you move further forward, you get the very soft juicy passion fruity note that you expect of the Simcoe, and then into the front half of the palate, yeah, absolutely about the kind of lychee type notes. And it's got that little bit of spicy lychee, but still quite juicy character, I would say. So yeah, fruity side of this one is really interesting. I've never encountered this HBC 586 hop before, but I think it is one that probably could make it to being a regular hop, you know, with an official name is what I mean. So yeah, I don't know if we really need to say anything more about the flavour of this beer. I think we can round off the review now with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So like I said, the thing that's really surprising about this beer is how light it is in the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, it's kind of mid-bodied, top end of mid-bodied at most. The carbonation is quite smooth in this one, and you do have that kind of smooth dryness and slight creaminess out of the beer, but overall it's like quite soft and slightly oily in a sense as well. I don't know if I'd describe this beer as having a slickness actually, but yeah, the way that it pieces together in that sense is quite nice. In terms of the IBU, but this one we know this was about 25 IBUs, was it? So yeah, 25 IBUs, which when you think about it being a triple IPA is a little bit lower. I would normally expect about 40 at least out of a triple IPA. So yeah, the green component in this one, it actually feels a little bit more bitter than the beer actually is because of the brightness that it has. But the maltiness, as we said, it has a bit of dryness underneath, the smoothness in the middle, and the kind of a little bit of creaminess and a slight sweetness on top. And then yeah, the fruity side of things, and this one is really interesting, quite sharp on the impact with the guava from the 586, and then yeah, juicy mango, softer passion fruit, and then the kind of lychee notes out of this one. Maybe a little bit of lime as well. I could, you know, argue that there's a wee bit of lime in this one just on reflection. So yeah, all in all, quite a barley malt leaning New England IPA, this one, with a bit of wheat in the aftertaste, not too thick. The thing that really surprises me about this one is how drinkable it is at 10% ABV, which is, again, I think this one is more barley malt leaning than being overly wheaty and overly oaty, because it would be a lot thicker in its mouthfeel if it was. But yeah, a really enjoyable beer, this one, and I would be very curious to try this beer on tap and see how it turns out in that regard. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This was the GG, a 10% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Young Master Brewery in Wong, Chuk here in Hong Kong. Really interesting beer, this one, and I think I will need to go and see if they have this on tap at either TAP or Second Draft in Victoria Park, or maybe even Pub 1842. Really curious to see how this beer is actually on draft, because it's very interesting in the can. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. The strongest hazy IPA we've ever had from these guys. Let me know your favourite beers from Young Master Brewery as well, and we will definitely return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But yeah, the GG from Young Master Brewery in Wong Chuk Hang on Hong Kong Island here in Hong Kong. Really interesting beer and absolutely worth trying. Till the next time, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, and I'll catch you guys on the next review. Ciao just now.